All righty. So I want to just give the basics of knocking out a quality improvement or evidence-based practice project. That's the goal here. If you tell me where you're stuck in particular, happy to help. But let me just go through some basics, show you a little bit of the tool that we have to help examine some of these questions or aims, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, so overall, let's just talk about a PICO question and how do you move from that PICO to your data analysis plan. Um, these PICOs are very detailed. When in fact, at the end of the day, what I really want to do is what are the variables? What kind of relationship do I want to see between those variables? So that's really kind of the essence of stripping away some of the additional stuff in the PICO to get to what are we talking about with respect to these variables? We need to talk about levels of measurement. These are the variables are bucketed into one of three levels of measurement. You got to know that. The type of test depends upon that. Okay. Study aims, you have to have particular language that evokes the data analysis plan. So we'll talk about some of that language. I am adding well, we had test selection, but control chart piece. Someone had asked for that. I am not, that is not my pure expertise for sure, but I can at least give you the sense of what's happening inside of control charts, show you where they are in the plots, and how you would set up that data. So I do appreciate bringing that in. I think it is important. And I just kind of neglected it up until someone said, hey, why don't you show us? How do you set up data? Happy to do that. Most of these projects are pre-post tests. Okay, so we're doing paired t-tests basically, but going to talk about the difference between clinical and statistical significance, why they are important, okay, particularly for small samples, which is very often the case. I'll touch on data cleaning wizard and how we can move from your results into a discussion chapter draft using Intellectus' AI, and then do a live demo. Okay. So the PICO question, and by the way, if you have any questions, throw them into the chat, throw them into the Q&A. Melissa will give me a heads up on this. So feel free. Okay. So the PICO question really is asking lots of stuff like, hey, what's the population, or what's changing, or what's the time period? These are important, and the PICO is kind of this standard bearer of phrasing, your study aim in totality. At the end of the day, though, I want to know about the outcome variables. To create a data analysis plan, that's to say what specific tests am I going to use to examine this particular aim. I want to know what are the variables and how are they interacting. And as I said, I mean, the outcome and the time may be important. For example, hey, does the frequency of hand washing change from pre to post intervention? Does knowledge, an outcome variable, change from pre to post? Okay. But typically, you're not really thinking about the population, okay? Or, when you're thinking about the statistical test. So just know that the PICO is not going anywhere, but at the end of the day, we want to distill it down to what is the outcome variable and what time frame are we looking at here, okay? All right. Let's talk about study aims and let's talk about levels of measurement. So levels of measurement are bucketed into three buckets. Your variables, pardon me 1 second here, while I sneeze. Okay. So your variables are in three buckets. One is just nominal, it's Latin for name only, and it's really just, I have a red square, green square, red square, or red square. Okay. There's no hierarchy, there's no order of any sort. Okay. And some examples of treatment or control, or male or female. Okay. So no order, just labels only. Okay. Ordinal, and the icon of that bar chart, ordinal has both labels and it has an order, okay, like age groups or perhaps satisfaction levels, low, moderate, high, or something of that sort, okay? Um, so labels and some meaningful order or rank, okay? Scale is the other bucket. When I think about scale, where I'm including things called continuous variables, things called ratio or interval level variables. Okay. With regard to the statistical test, it doesn't matter. Those are all falling into the same bucket. Okay. All right. The key thing is that they have labels, they have order, but they have equal spaces or equal volumes, okay? And I'm going to put in Likert type items in this thing. Um, so if you have a Likert type scale from 1 to 5 or 1 to 7, okay? And especially if you start averaging them, right? So one can imagine having a knowledge test, um, you know, correct or incorrect, that's nominal. But once I start adding them, I am now in scale, land, level of measurement. Okay. All right. So three levels of measurement. Know what they are for your variables. Okay. Um, this is just me perseverating on Likert type items. This is just for individual items. If you have an individual item that you're analyzing and it's 3 to 4 points, keep it as ordinal. Okay. If you have 5 to 7 points, the literature says that you can treat it as a scale, no harm done. Okay. Um, Once you have composite averages or sum scores, once you start averaging or adding these things, you are in, as I said, scale land here. Okay. And you'll have, by the way, everyone's going to get a copy of this. Okay. Um, Talk about statistical language. Things can be really bucketed into differences, relationships, and prediction. Okay. Differences, are there differences on knowledge scores before or after some intervention? Okay. So that, very common DNP kinds of questions. Relationships. Hey, gosh, is there a relationship between staffing ratios and number of falls? All right. Prediction. Does satisfaction of nurses predict patient satisfaction? And really, any question you really kind of have, you can kind of keep it simple and think about differences, relationships, and prediction kind of language. All right. And try to keep it to, particularly for DNP projects, try to keep it to, I'll say bivariate, two variables. Don't go crazy with three variables or stacking these things. Some people are asking several questions within a question. That doesn't help. Try to keep it simple. If you have to make a study aim one and study aim, 1A and 1B, okay, fine. But try to keep these things kind of clean, all right? Okay, quick cheat sheet. You can take a picture of this with your camera if you think it might be of value. Most DNP projects have a scale variable at 2 time points, first row. We're doing paired sample t-test. I don't know what article I read, but it was I'm sure it's a few years old, but it was something like, and it may have changed a little bit. 80% of DNP projects are doing paired sample t-tests, some pre to post intervention. Okay. Why is that? One, it's simple as heck to do. But secondly, DNPs often have one stats class. It was taken a year ago, and it's not top of mind to be thinking about other types of tests. Um, so, um, so if you have a scale outcome variable at 2 time points, you're in paired t-test land. The other common things would be the chi-square, which is really looking at two nominal level variables, seeking to examine is there a relationship, between these variables? Is there a relationship between, sex male female and you know NCLEX pass fail? Okay, something of this sort. Your one variable can have more than two levels, but I'm just giving you a simple 2 by 2, male, female, okay, or prep class, yes, no, and pass NCLEX, yes, no, on the first try, or something like this. All right, so chi-squares are common, and then I would just say maybe the Pearson correlation. I have a scale variable, um, two scale variables as I increase the dose of whatever blood pressure medication, is that related to my actual blood pressure? All right. Okay. And I will touch on a decision tree that will help you get there as well. Okay. 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 Control charts. So basically, you can see from the chart on the left talking about hand hygiene compliance. You can see the compliance rates over the year. All right. And the key thing to see is that those two dotted lines above and below, that's 3 standard deviations from the mean. Okay, that bar smack in the middle, the 85% is the average. Okay, hand washing, um, which seems low to me, by the way, but that's besides the point. You think you'd want 100%, um, or at least visibly 100%. So the key thing with any of these, this is a simple control chart, is hey, there's some intervention, and is the compliance rate above that upper control limit, okay? And you'll be able to identify that. There's different rules that go with these things, and you have to have a few, perhaps several of these above the upper control limit, or the several above that upper dotted line to say, hey, the intervention has really worked. All right, but that's essentially what you're doing. Instead of just numbers, um, it would be difficult to discern that something is really some special cause, or okay, as they call it. All right, so uh, it's visually seeing what's happening over time on some particular variable. Um, okay, and I'll show you where these things are inside the tool itself. Okay. Setting up data, it's important to set up data correctly. Um, on the left hand, you'll see the paired t-test. All right. Uh, and you'll have a column for the participant ID, and then your outcome variables, in this case, just pre and post test. And the key thing here is that each individual, okay, or nurse in this case, is on its own row. Okay. So nurse one has a pre-test score and a post-test score. All right. And we're looking at pair t-test is what we typically want to compare there. Hey, did some intervention in between the pre and post-test differ? Okay, statistically. The chart to the right here is again, each participant is on its own row. They may have different groups. Okay. So perhaps the intervention group had some intervention about, the importance of washing hands or whatever. The control group is washing hands as usual. Okay. So again, each participant is on each row, but you could have other variables there, like which group you're in. And of course, you could have other columns with demographics or other things of that sort. Okay. Quick comment on statistical significance versus clinical significance. And basically speaking, statistical significance is when we conduct a paired t-test, we come up with a t-value, and we can say that whether that happened by chance or not. Okay. And if it did not happen by chance, we often look at those means and say, hey, gosh, the hand washing, is different post intervention compared to pre-intervention. Okay, so most of these DNP projects are around statistical significance. But there's also this thing called clinical significance. And when you have clinical significance is it meaningful? Did it make an impact? So with a small sample size, it's very common not to get statistical significance when in fact it's a meaningful difference. If you reduce falls by 30%, and it doesn't and it's not statistically significant because perhaps you had a small sample size, but 30% is huge, particularly for those 30% that didn't fall. That would be really important to know and to highlight. So this is often measured by the Cohen's D, as in David. It's probably a different word for the D, but Cohen's D is that value. And that's important to also report. Okay. All right. This is just perseverating on that. Sometimes it's clinically significant, but statistically significant, but not clinically, but not statistically, and then both. Again, you'll get a copy of this, but it's just highlighting that they are independent. Okay. They're independent, particularly around small samples. Okay. All right. And conversely, with large samples often you can find statistical significance, but not clinical significance. So, but the point is you want to look at both of those things. Okay. All right. All right. So both the p-value for the statistical significance and the effect size, or the Cohen's d for the clinical significance, or yeah. We will touch on data cleaning wizard, I think, and discussion draft for sure. The data cleaning wizard, we put this functionality in the tool because when you get data from Qualtrics, often it's got several levels of headings, and it's not as clean as we need it. Okay, and I'll show you what I mean by clean data. Discussion draft is important because it's giving you ideas about how to summarize your findings, how to talk about practical or theoretical implications, what the limitations of the study are, and so forth. So it's important to touch on. Okay, so off to the live demo. Melissa, do I have any questions in the meantime?
Yeah, there's two in there, both from David. And David, we have such a small group, I can unmute you as well.
Let's do it.
But if they're in the Q&A, if you want to open them.
Thank you. Okay, so David, I have a study in which I'm correlating. Okay, so muscle activation of several muscles. Okay, so I have muscle one, and I have some activation number. I have muscle two, I have some activation number, muscle three, some activation. So, okay, so muscle activation of several muscles with numerous other joint motion measurements. Okay, let's get David over here.
Hi, Jim.
Hey, David, how you doing?
Hi, thanks a lot for taking my question.
Yeah. So
Basically, I've got like four muscles and a whole bunch of range of motion measurements, but also I've got
range of motion measurements.
yeah, like at different joints, looking at,
Yeah,
how much motion is in a particular direction at a particular
yeah,
joint. But I've got a bunch of those. I have the four muscles, but it's not even just four measurements of muscle activity. It's four measurements of muscle activity in a bunch of exercises. So I've got like about a dozen exercises, a dozen range of motion measurements, and four muscles times a dozen exercises
right.
times a dozen range of motion measurements. So I did individual um, Pearson correlations for each muscle activation measurement, against each of the for each exercise against the range of motion measurement. But I'm wondering if there's like, a simpler or more efficient or more appropriate
Yeah,
way to do that.
absolutely. Yeah. So my first thought, David, was, there's a war in the Sudan that needs to be handled. Um, so let's just go tackle that.
Sorry, there's what that needs to be handled?
I said my first thought was there is a war in the Sudan now
Oh,
that we should go tackle that. Okay. So so
right.
so yeah, so we want to simplify these things, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
So let's just take muscle one. You have let's just take muscle one for the moment.
Sure.
And you have 12 exercises, and each exercise has a range of motion.
Well, no, there's just range of motion. There's just four, like, let's say there are 12 different range of motion measurements, period.
12
But
range of okay, got it. 12,
yeah,
okay. So for muscle one, just average those.
yeah.
Now
So right.
average those into one average range of motion for that muscle.
Yeah.
That's the answer. So that's it. So for muscle one, okay, I have an average range of motion.
Yeah, but the problem is I can't look at one muscle and then take the muscles at all of the joints in all the directions and combine them all, because there may be a different relationship of that muscle activation depending upon the direction of the range of motion. Like one muscle may have more activity because there's more motion in one direction than another.
Are you saying that different muscles have different range of motions?
No,
Oh, please.
there are different measurements at each joint, like let's say knee flexion, knee extension,
Right.
hip flexion, hip extension, that type of thing. And then I've got a given muscle's activity in a particular exercise, and I'm going to correlate that muscle activation in that exercise to each one of those
Muscles.
joint measurements.
Oh,
And
okay. Joint mesh.
yeah,
Uh, well, listen, you to the extent that you can average these things that makes sense.
yeah,
Okay, that's what you want to be doing.
right.
Okay, you don't want to be doing. Okay, by the way, are you relating muscle to muscle or no?
Uh,
Or no?
no, I'm
No.
not.
Okay, fine. So that
Yeah.
simplifies things.
Right,
So
right.
figure out per muscle, okay, what makes sense to average,
Yeah,
okay, and collapse them and call. I know you lose information, okay, by averaging these things, but it's manageable.
yeah,
You
yeah.
don't want crazy 500 correlation business, okay?
Right.
Okay.
Is there like a regression or something else that is more appropriate for something like this?
Well, well, that doesn't solve the problem. The
Oh,
problem is you have too many data points.
yeah, right.
Okay, so you,
I'm not sure that I can really, I know what you're saying. I absolutely know what you're saying, that, just to simplify it and collapse it,
yeah.
but it sort of invalidates, it would invalidate the measure. Like I can't combine flexion and extension at a joint, or, like all
So,
four
so that's
directions at a
fine.
joint.
But are there several inflection measurements?
Mm,
It can't just be one. If you have 12 of these things, you're either inflection, extension, rotate,
well,
I mean, are they
yeah,
12
I
sections?
usually have like four directions at a joint, right? At least.
Right.
And then multiple joints. That's sort of the issue.
And multiple joints.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, look, you have two choices.
Yeah.
You're either going to collapse. First of all, I'm going to go back to my sedan comment. Okay.
Yeah.
Why must you do every single joint, every single thing? Who said this? Who told you this? Tell me.
Right.
You tell me. Okay.
Well,
But
yeah.
the answer is you.
Yeah.
All right. Not your professor. Okay. So, okay. So if you want to solve the war in the Sudan, keep doing it.
Okay.
Or let's be smart and say, you know what? When I get into this thing, Dr. Chair, okay, I find out I have 500 of these things. I'm going to only do inflections or only this, whatever. I'm going
Yeah.
to now, and it doesn't make sense to collapse these things. Therefore, I'm not going to eat the whole elephant, and I'm going to take
Yeah.
just one part of it. And I'm going to, despite the fact that you have all these measurements, okay, and
Yeah.
nobody likes throwing things out or putting it to the side, you put it to the side, and you say, I'm only going to focus on this.
Well, you know what I did?
I'm only going to focus on one muscle. How
Yeah,
about that?
that's true. I mean, I could do that, and I could like have, four papers, one on each muscle. I could do something like that.
Fine. Are you doing a
Um,
DNP project or are you a prof?
no, no, I'm a professor. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know,
It's yeah. No, I
yeah.
know what you're saying. What I've done is I've looked at I have sort of tossed aside all the ones that are like correlations below zero point 0.5 or
Yeah.
negative zero point 0.5, and then looked at the ones that seemed to make sense, and thought that those were the ones that I'd report on.
Yeah. Well, here's the problem with that.
Yeah,
Okay. And I'm going to be not hard on you, but hard on the phenomena out there in the science world.
yeah,
And this is worth it for other folks too, whether you're profs or students, okay?
yeah.
There was a crisis that was years ago, and I'm sure it's changing a little bit. A crisis in replication. And the problem with the crisis in replication is this. When I was a kid, okay, I took these studies as gospel.
Yeah,
Okay. I thought, wow, okay, all this this was gospel. Okay. What happens is they couldn't replicate it. Why can't they replicate it? Because they're doing what you're doing, which is let me look at everything and then let me focus in on the ones that were significant. Not correcting that alpha, by the way. Okay. All
yeah,
right. And saying I did 500 of these things, I can't look at 0.05 as my significance level. It's got to be 0.00001. All right.
yeah.
So if you're going to, and I'm not picking on you in particular,
No,
but
I get it. I
I'm
totally
warning
understand.
everybody against cherry picking
Yeah,
because it does not do your field, any good to do 20 experiments, say, God, I just found these. Let me report on these like
oh yeah,
this.
no, and I know exactly what you're saying.
You all right?
I wouldn't not report. What I would say is that simply the other ones were low correlations,
You can
or
say low correlations and you have to correct the alpha. Okay.
right, right,
Okay. But it makes it stringent as hell once you're doing as many as you're doing.
right,
So I
right.
would say narrow down your study.
Yeah,
Imagine you didn't run any correlations. Okay.
mm, yeah,
And then say, you know what? I'm going in with these specific 5 hypotheses or whatever. Okay.
yeah,
Or,
yeah,
okay, something manageable. and then do that honestly.
Yeah.
Um, Honest in the, in the capital H way, which
Right.
is, hey, this is what I'm looking at, because it doesn't do you with the field, and the real problem is it's difficult to replicate them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and again, I was very disappointed. Okay, I thought, again, gospel, the clay feet of the research, because they couldn't replicate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
How could that be? Social psych. So, and you want just good research out there. So I would say narrow it. If you can collapse, even with the
Yeah.
limitations of losing data. Be focused about it.
Yeah.
If you want to do different papers, great. Here's one of four papers coming out. Um, you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. Thanks a
Yeah.
lot. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
No, my pleasure. And again, I hope I'm not being hard on you, but
No, no,
hard
no,
on the.
no. I listen. I agree with everything you're saying. There's definitely there's still a crisis in replication for a lot of reasons. A lot of
Yeah.
journals have gotten sloppy in requiring authors to be more specific about what they've done, let alone, reporting everything. No, for
Right.
sure. Yep.
Exactly. And again, it's everything is well intentioned. Like, hey, gosh, you know what? I threw a lot of kind of relationships out there, and it is kind of cool to figure out which ones are important predictors or important relationships. But
Right.
without reporting and particularly adjusting that alpha, you get that type 1 error where you think you found something, but you really didn't.
Yeah, and I guess it's also an issue of how many subjects based on how many variables, right?
Well, that's going to play into it too. I
Yeah,
mean, that's gonna come out in the wash, but that's going to come out in the wash in terms of that critical value.
yeah,
Uh, so I hope we're not boring the other
yeah,
10 folks on there, but it's an important thing of to report what you have, simplify what you can,
yeah,
okay?
yeah,
And you don't nobody eats the whole elephant. Even
yeah.
these very sophisticated designs, they're not eating whole elephants typically. So
Yeah.
anyway, I wish you well, and I like your picture with the candle too.
Thank-
All
Yeah, you
right.
don't want to see my face. That's it.
You don't want to trust me, you don't want to see my face. That's why I'm off camera. All right.
Take care,
Well,
Jim. Thanks so much.
yeah, take care. All right. Melissa, any other questions we have at the moment?
Not right this second, no.
Okay, fine. All right. So, all righty. So, let's just, I don't know if I have a quick data set to, how are we doing with time? I think we're okay. So let's just get to, quick overview here. Decision tree helps you to get to where you want to go. Hey, I want to predict an outcome, that's scale. I'm doing a linear regression. Um, okay. So decision trees, you can play around with this. You can't break it. But it goes into those buckets of predicting, predicting, relating, or differences. There's some data plans for different tests to be had. Okay. These are downloadable and editable. Okay. Sample size, we kind of touched on that with David for a second. It's called power analysis. Okay. Paired samples. You kind of get a sense of, a desired sample size. Okay. All right. So that's really kind of methodology, IRB kind of business. All right. I think the simple thing to do for most folks is well, I'll take maybe a David example, but maybe a typical DNP project. Here you can, upload different data files. You can use an example data set. I'd recommend, by the way, if you have a test that you're going to conduct, go find the test here. Okay, go find the test and get the data set All right, and run it. Um, so pair t-test, time one and time two. Okay, so so once you have data in, notice the levels of measurement here. All right. I'm gonna edit data for a second. Let's just call this, knowledge one or knowledge pre, knowledge post. Okay. All right. And and a very common kind of thing to do. Let's just say our aim is to say, hey, gosh, are there differences pre to post knowledge? Okay. And then let's just also talk about the demographics like gender and fatigue. Okay. By the way, before you get out of this data management, if you've messed with this data set at all, you're going to want to download that data set. Okay. Um, if you're creating variables, change the data set. Okay. Um, plots. Um, let's let's go to let me go back for a second because I did want to just touch on the control charts. So I think I can go here and I go to control charts. So just to share with you what's inside here. So here's the data set. Under the plots, under control charts, there's different kinds of control charts to be had here. Okay. Um, it's looking at our time and weight. Heads up, there's video tutorials everywhere. Um, let's just say there's an intervention time. Like you did some intervention at time 10. Um, heads up on the levels of measurement here. Okay. So here you can kind of see, I wish I had the upper and lower control limits though. Do I get that choice? Add filters? No. Um, okay, so this is a very simple, let me get out of this. This is a very simple control chart, okay? Um, where you are looking at data points, weights over time. All right. Really, what I would have liked to have seen though um, is the upper and lower control, upper and lower, and I might need a different chart for that. Um, let me see what I could do here. Okay. Often these things have rule sets, so these different commissions have different rule sets. I'm just messing around with this, as I would invite you to as well. So here, do we have the data? Do we have the center line? So we do have the center line here, and then the upper and lower control. Okay, so you can see which um, time points are above or below that 3 standard deviation. Again, it's just giving you a visual of what's happening. This would be kind of normal within that upper and lower 3 standard deviations. That's kind of normal variation, but you can see, hey, these weights are outside of that control. All right. And then just with respect to the interpretations, well, for those different commissions, there are rule sets that can actually interpret that chart. If you have 1,000 of these data points, it's going to be a pain in the neck to do that. But if you have the rules, um, if you do have the rule sets that you want, you can have that. This is not a great example of that, but the rule sets can be can interpret what your data is showing. Okay. I want to go back to where we were, which is our simple paired sample t-test. So once you have your data, you've downloaded your managed data. There's other plots to be had here, by the way, in addition to control charts. Okay. Under analyses, it really runs the gamut from descriptives to chi-squares to regressions to our t-tests. But you always want to start with descriptives. If you don't, you're going to learn the hard way, as I have, which is, oh, I made a data entry error. So you want to run descriptives always, run them and read them. So endorse the variables that you want to look at. Okay. Heads up again, video tutorials there. Hit calculate. So the second part of the running is the reading. So you want to make sure, okay, I have 57 folks there. Check. All right. So you want to look at that. You want to look at the pre and post knowledge. Okay, great. Means, sample size looks right. The mins and maxes are important. Hey, the max is 50 and I have 444. Okay, so you want to correct that before you move forward with other types of tests. All right. All right, so once the descriptives are done and read and corrected, then really you want to go to the test at hand. You can see the scroll over the test the mean difference between two scale variables. It's exactly what we're doing. All right. So I want to assess differences from pre to post. Okay, pre versus post. Hit calculate. Okay. So with all of these different tests over here, many of them have assumptions. What Intellectus statistics does is it says, guess what? You have an assumption. One assumption is normality, hunky-dory. This is just educating you, okay? This is a test to assess normality. The tool automatically runs the test, and the tool automatically interprets the test, okay? In this case, having a significant Shapiro-Wilk test is bad, okay? There's conversations to be had around that, but for flow of the presentation here, you get to the results, it's interpreting. Hey, guess what? That t-value is statistically significant. All right. This is one way of reporting that. Okay. DNPs do not use hypothesis testing, so you want to like nix that. You're not going to want that. And once you know that t-value is statistically significant, we can look at the means and say, that post-test knowledge is reliably greater than or generalizably greater than that knowledge at pretest. So post is greater than pretest. While on here, you'll notice the D is the Cohen's D effect size that I mentioned earlier. So just heads up that anything north of, I think, 0.3 to 0.8 is a moderate effect size. So that's worth noting. Hey, it's statistically significant and it's moderately important. And you can just see a bar graph of that, right? Okay, so basic, get data in, basic, run descriptives in your test. Let's just touch briefly on the discussion. Um, I think I entered data in here. I ran analyses here. And if I generate I probably have a better discussion than this, but let's just say when you get to from the interpreted output to discussion draft, you just want to generate discussion draft or click that. And you'll want to put in, name of the draft, put in your problem, purpose, and research questions. Make sure that these make sense. This may be from a particular validated instrument. You want to cite that instrument as well as the author name and year. Okay, and then click next. Okay, and then you'll want to endorse, hey, I put in what I had. I need to verify everything. Once you get that, and then start discussion draft. Once you get that, what the output is going to be is an introduction. Okay? This is like a 20-hour lift. You're going to get an introduction. It's going to summarize your findings, interpret your finding in the context of the literature. That's a big deal. Okay. You'll want to validate those references. Okay, but it's giving you the interpretation, theoretical and practical implications of your findings for the field. Okay. And then limitations, future research conclusions. All right. And then you can download that draft. Again, this is AI driven, so you really got to vet each sentence, okay, to make sure it really works for you. All right. Okay, and for the faculty on there, okay, since I do have this, and this will be our first input for the faculty that's out there, and for the faculty that are out there, let me just do a quick. I have no idea how many are out there. I know one, but aside from David, but David too. Do you worry about students' critical thinking when they're using tools using AI? Just for the faculty, if you answer yes or no, that would be great. Put that into the chat. Melissa, give me a summary of that small sample size. But are you worried about AI? Obliterating critical thinking. So, for those that are in the yes camp, thank you, Susan. There's other ones in there. So for those, so we have 2 for 2. So for those, so we have a consensus, not so much because they have to vet what they get. Perfect. But how do you know that they vet what they get? That's my question. So we have an answer, and I would love feedback from Susan and Chevaline and David. We have the reflections. So in your discussion draft, what we do is have an audit trail, but I hear you. So we have reflections where when students are going through the summary of findings, we are prompting them, okay, does the summary accurately reflect the results of each research question or hypothesis? Okay. Interpretation of the findings. Okay. Does your interpretation, okay, appropriately connect the results of the studies? Okay. So what we're doing is we're prompting students through the AI output to ensure that they are critically thinking. This serves 3 purposes. Okay. So, what this does is it prompts them to think about that output. It gives faculty another window into their thinking, and it gives accreditors some audit about that thinking is occurring. Mel, just make sure that we have the comments from everybody because I want to peek at those after. For sure. So, just to know that there is a reflections portion or a guided reflections, and I would be interested in your thoughts about that. You may not like it, you may like it. but for every aspect of the discussion, which includes the results, we are prompting them to think about um, aspects of that. So if you would either online or now just throw in, hey, this seems like a good idea. Jim, not a great idea. I would change it to that. But okay, so and then if I downloaded that, just to give you an overarching idea here. So this would be the discussion draft. It's pretty lengthy, but I'm going to scroll through. So after the discussion draft, all of these, if I can get there, I'll get there. All of these reflections, okay, are tracked. So when the students use the tool and download that, they should be filling out, okay, every aspect of this. Or if they don't, I think that's a teaching moment that, hey, gosh, what does accuracy mean here? What is, okay. If they're not connecting, I think it gives you, again, a window into their thinking prior to the defense that you can really look at. It's a window into their reasoning and thinking. So good for them to be thinking about, good for you to interact with them. And I'd be curious about your thoughts about that, how to improve that or not. Okay. And it's not I'll say essential for everything. We're just trying to address the critical thinking crisis, which is, hey, we used to just in the old days only look at the output, and now I want a window about the process as well as the product. Okay. And this is our attempt to get at the process. All right. All righty. With that being, sorry if I was going off on that for a minute. Um, Final thoughts, questions, comments. Let me just put this out there. Um, Slideshow from the current. So, um, if you're a student and want support, please contact Sam. Ashley is your gal for faculty. That's demos, trials. We have courseware around this, particularly for DNPs or healthcare. Melissa for in general. There's a 20-minute QR code for me, of the contact info. And I think with that, I think I'll stop for the day. Um, you'll get a recording of this, upcoming webinars. Please do share this with other folks. If you see any value here with regard to the webinar, with regard to the tool, with regard to the courses I really didn't show you, but perhaps the reflections, perhaps the discussion. Please share with colleagues. We've done our best, but we got a small team. We don't, word of mouth goes a long, long way. So please do share to the extent you feel comfortable. And I want to thank everyone and have a safe, wonderful, wonderful weekend. And we'll see you next time. Until then, I'm going to sign off and take care and again, be safe.